Key point 1. When homosexuality and religion clash. Garrett was born into a model family. His father, a decent man and clever car dealer, chose the path of a church preacher. He wanted to lead people to God with his words and forewarnings. His mother, an obedient and attentive woman, was the perfect companion for her husband. In that apparent ideal setting of religiosity and innocence, their only son had no choice but to inherit the feeling of devotion to God. Encouraged by his parents, he occupied himself with church visits and memorized scriptures. But Garrett's world of purity fell apart when he realized he was different. He couldn't resist his attraction to other males. In the eyes of some religions, homosexuality is an unforgivable and deadly sin, a so-called abnormality in severity similar to alcohol and drug addiction. These individuals believe in the concept of conversion therapy, structured programs that attempt to address what they perceive as personal shortcomings and behavior misaligned with their moral beliefs. It's not just the issue of sexuality that draws their criticism. They condemn popular culture aspects, for example, Harry Potter books and classical music. As they put it, these things divert attention from serving God and contaminate young minds. Your surroundings significantly influence you. However, your feelings and emotions define who you are. Torn between church values and his true identity, Garrett suffered immensely. Like a mantra, he asked God to make him pure and spare him from the agony of constantly questioning his feelings. Could a young boy oppress his natural needs in the name of God? Or should he let go of his family and normal life and embrace his true self? This summary will reveal Garrett Conley's choice and how it influenced his life. Key point 2. A stranger in his own community. To be seen as different was one of Garrett's greatest fears. He desperately tried to fit in, to dispel any suspicions that might have arisen about his sexuality, so he started dating Chloe, a lovely girl from his church. Always smiling and optimistic, she could warm any place with her presence, and that quality appealed to Garrett. He finally felt comfortable. He could gain people's approval when he attended services with his girlfriend, and they were a cute couple in school. In reality, Chloe was more than just social protection for Garrett. She was a genuine friend, and they enjoyed playing games and listening to music together. It was just naive teenage dating until Chloe suggested intimacy. Her delicate touches while they were kissing in a car petrified Garrett. What excuse could postpone such a crucial moment in their relationship? Ironically enough, religion came to the rescue. They should wait until marriage. It was the only solution that came to Garrett's mind. Still, it didn't alleviate his frustration because he saw Chloe's eagerness to cross that line of innocence and dreaded the inevitable. At the beginning of their relationship, Garrett truly hoped to reciprocate her love. Now, he wasn't so sure. Garrett worried that dating Chloe wasn't enough to guarantee his heterosexuality. What if someone could see through his intentions? What if the men who came to his father's office to pray doubted him? Gerard's sexuality was not his only difference. He didn't entertain the same ideas some church visitors did. On one occasion, a revered community member and church deacon asked Garrett his opinion on the Middle East war. As the man saw it, the United States should have bombed that area with a nuclear weapon to resolve the matter. The group of men gathered around Garrett waiting for his answer. Their questioning gazes were torturing him. Should he choose honesty and admit he was an Arab sympathizer? Or should he follow the elders' lead and accept the path of violence? The pressure was intense and the words refused to come out of his mouth. "That's okay," was the deacon's response. It is tough to embrace your uniqueness in a community of like-minded people. Key point 3. The loss of a close confidant. The question of having sex with Chloe daunted Garrett. He felt that it was an obligation he should fulfill to prove his straightness. Together, they decided on a movie date at her house. Without a word, they understood that it would be a significant night for both of them. But any attempt to set up a romantic mood was unsuccessful as Chloe's younger brother was there joking around. To a certain point, his behavior comforted Garrett. It distracted his attention from what was to come. He and Garrett were supposed to sleep over in the basement, and Garrett planned to sneak into Chloe's room that night. Feeling anxious in his sleeping bag, he suddenly heard a voice. The game console was on immediately, and the two boys became immersed in the virtual world. While playing with the character they created, Chloe's brother pointed out that his avatar was probably gay. When their eyes met, the boys realized the truth about each other. The game lasted until sunrise, and Garrett breathed a sigh of relief. Failure to establish his heterosexuality pushed Garrett to cut ties with Chloe. No matter how much she tried, Chloe couldn't understand the reason for the breakup, as he ignored her calls and avoided her at church. Everyone in the community worried about the sudden separation, but Garrett kept quiet. To escape the real world, he got into a loop of video games, tirelessly playing every night. The breakup with Chloe also meant no communication with her brother, the only person who knew his secret. A fear of expressing their identity pushes people to avoid their surroundings and seek solitude. Before Garrett moved to college, he received bad news. Chloe's parents had found out about their son's orientation. His mother, devastated by this revelation, wanted Garrett's father to persuade the boy to reject his sinful thoughts. The preacher came home late, racked and heavy-hearted. There was an expression on his face Garrett could read. He was doubtful. His father sensed that the incident had something to do with his son and his inner self. Shortly after, Garrett called his parents to the bathroom, put his PlayStation in a tub, and poured water on it. It was a sign he no longer wanted to hide in his game reality. Whatever came his way, Garrett was ready to face it. Key point 4. An innocent friendship takes a new turn. Garrett's guilt for breaking Chloe's heart resulted in his almost self-destructive wish to lose weight. Before starting college, he lost 50 pounds and scared his parents with his new look. Yet, Garrett liked the change because his appearance now looked like the societal ideal of a slender man. He was confident to start a new chapter of his life on campus, not so far from his parents' house, but enough to lead an independent life. The first person Garrett met on campus was David. The boys immediately hit it off as they had similar hobbies and came from a religious background. David attended the Pentecostal church. Its congregation sang songs, spoke in tongues, and even went into convulsions during the service. Some missionary Baptists, including Garrett's father, condemned this way of praying to God. They couldn't accept such theatrical performances at church. Despite these striking contrasts, Garrett agreed to visit a Pentecostal service to see it with his own eyes and bond with his new friend David. Little did Garrett know that friendship would lead to unspeakable horror. After the service at the Pentecostal church, David sexually assaulted him and confessed that he did the same to a 14-year-old boy. It was a traumatizing experience, but in his head, Garrett put all the blame on himself. Why would he let David do this to him if they were equally strong? Was it somehow a punishment for his sexual fantasies and homosexuality? In his mind, Garrett felt no better than a rapist or pedophile and hid his secret from the world. However, he didn't want to conceal the information about the 14-year-old boy and revealed it to the college pastor. To his surprise, the pastor told him to keep quiet. A feeling of shame can overshadow a sense of self-respect. But David was desperate to make Garrett's life even more insufferable. He called his parents and told them about their son's sexuality. It was a punch in the face to the preacher and his wife. Garrett's father even threatened to stop paying for his education if he publicly claimed his homosexuality. Finally, the mask Garrett had worn so carefully in the presence of his family fell off. Did you know? The Pentecostal church focuses on spirituality, whereas the missionary Baptists study Bible interpretation and hard work. Key point 5. What stands behind love in action? Garrett's parents believed that conversion therapy with love in action was the best solution to the problem. LIA was a religious organization that worked with so-called atypical people, such as gay and lesbian individuals, men and women who cheated on their spouses, and teachers that left their job as the rumors of their sexuality spread. Its leader was a controversial personality. At the beginning of his practice, he remarked that death was a better option than living with the wrong sexuality. Some attendees of the program took this advice seriously and committed suicide. Still recovering from media bashing, the leader became careful with his words. His new advice was to follow God. Your sexuality is your undeniable nature that no one can change or frown upon. LIA staff mainly consisted of former participants of the program. To interact with patients, they had to separate themselves from the secular world. They could only talk with people approved by LIA, and they didn't have access to the internet or other popular sources of information. LIA was a gathering of people scared to lose everything in their lives. They believed society would exclude or see them as outlaws if they embraced their true selves. Like everybody else there, Garrett was ready to work hard to wash away his sins and be accepted in the community. You could hardly find a movie in small-town theaters that spoke openly of homosexuality, and when you did, it almost always ended with someone dying of AIDS. Garrett Conley. The acceptance procedure included reviewing all personal items like a telephone and wallet and assessing the patient's appearance. Any elements deemed provocative, such as overly feminine clothing on men or masculine clothing on women, came under the FI, or false images category. The same would go for any questionable content on phones. The staff even ripped pages from Garrett's notebook. His stories received an FI classification. The patients then received handbooks containing homework they had to do after every session. For Garrett, the program would last 2 weeks, from 9 to 5 every day. Key point 6. Inside LIA's therapy sessions. One of the practices LIA used in the program was drawing a genogram. Visually, it resembled the family tree, but the genogram also tracked the history of so-called flaws throughout generations. The letters near the relative's name signified different issues. A stood for alcoholism, D for drugs, and G for gambling. LIA staff believed a correlation existed between previous generational sins and a patient's so-called abnormalities. Garrett quickly figured out the meaning behind the schemes they were creating. Seeing family imperfections could bring comfort. After all, there was something to blame for your quirk. Every night at home, those in conversion therapy underwent MI, or moral inventory. Patients had to write about the deepest secrets of their lives, whether it was a sexual fantasy or same-sex intercourse. The next day, they had to share those experiences with the group. LIA counselors believed this practice could help to empty the soul of the sins the person committed and make them pure. But it also provoked immense feelings of shame, guilt, and humiliation. We had to be willing to undergo extreme changes, leave people behind who were harmful to our development, who reminded us of the past. Garrett Conley. LIA encouraged people to reject their nature and the most crucial parts of their personality as they believed it would bring them closer to heaven. It made Garrett reflect on why God requested such a big sacrifice. Why was he so cruel to his people? While running through the streets at night, Garrett decided to break free. He couldn't hear God's voice anymore. He started to abandon LIA, as it wasn't worth all the pain he had to endure. Constant humiliation makes people obedient and less self-sufficient. When the lie chair exercise came up, Garrett couldn't immerse himself into it or pretend anymore. He was supposed to sit in front of the empty chair and imagine his father sitting there. His task was to express all the emotions and anger he felt. But Garrett loved his father. He couldn't turn against him or scream the most atrocious words to his imaginative figure in the room. It was the last straw, and a good reason to leave the facility. Conclusion. Garrett and his family have almost no photographs from 2004, when his homosexuality became apparent. It is as if they subconsciously wanted to hide any reminder of that dark period of internal struggle, pain, and doubt. Since that time, multiple changes have happened to love in action. Many former counselors spoke up about the inefficiency of conversion therapy and its destructive influence on minds. Among them was a group's leader who conducted meetings for Garrett's group. He also admitted on national television that homosexuality is not something you can or need to cure. Conversion therapy has broken the lives of many people around the globe. Those individuals wanted to find peace in religion and feel the love of their surroundings. Instead, they found themselves trapped. The painful words and humiliating exercises made them question their existence and the validity of their emotions. The lucky ones escaped conversion therapy at the earliest stages and learned to live free of shame. Some people still cannot recover from the damage. They struggle with mental illnesses like bipolar disorder and PTSD and experience suicidal thoughts. Garrett lost his connection with God. He tried to find his way back to faith by attending different churches and studying another religion. but the same devotion to God he felt in childhood wouldn't return. However, Garrett doesn't despair. He hopes to hear God's voice again. Try this. If you're interested in this topic, watch the movie adaptation of this book. The film, called Boy Erased, is directed by Joel Edgerton and stars Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe.